Today on CityCast Chicago, all episodes of season 4 of The Bear premiere today on Hulu. And for the last few years, it has arguably been Chicago's most binged, talked about, and award-winning TV show. But the question is, do we still care? It's Wednesday, June 25th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago is talking about. I am joined by an illustrious CityCast Chicago panel this morning. Joining us, our executive producer, Simone Alicea.
Hey, Jacoby.
Hey, Chicago newsletter editor, Emmy Mack.
Hi.
And social media manager, Rick Homuth.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, so we've got everybody in the building to talk about, again, the most talked about show in Chicago over the last few years. Ever since it came out, it feels like people have had opinions about how the city is portrayed, about the storylines. Each person in their own way, some of the stars of the show have blown up and become bigger pop culture icons over the last 4 years. But I want to start here. And Simone, I'm going to start with you. Do you watch The Bear? And do you like it? We're not going to get into all the details of why or why not, but do you watch it? Are you caught up? And do you like it?
Yes, on all counts. I think it's a great show. I really, really enjoy it.
Okay, Emmy, over to you. We setting the stage. Are you caught up and do you enjoy the show?
I'm mostly caught up on season 3. I have mixed feelings about the show.
Okay, and over to Rick. Do you enjoy the show and are you caught up on the show?
I've never seen The Bear. I think I watched half the pilot. I was on my phone the whole time. I'm sure it's great, but I don't like what it's done to this city. And we can get plenty more into that.
We definitely will. I think we all have different opinions. I'm going along with Simone. I actually really enjoy the show. I've had fun going through all of the conversations, all of the, is that a real Chicago thing or not? And I'm excited for season 4 today. I do plan on binging it the way I have done the previous few seasons. For people listening, whether you have watched the show or not, there's a lot going on, but it really boils down to this over the first 3 seasons. The young man Carmy returns home to Chicago a few months after his brother commits suicide to run their family restaurant. The restaurant is just like a classic Italian beef restaurant in Chicago, but it is not doing well. It is financially unstable. The working relationships are unstable. And Carmy, who has a background in the culinary world, is trying to transform this restaurant to varying degrees of success while pretty much avoiding any and all attempts to work on himself and the things he's going through. Over the last couple of seasons, they have torn down the original restaurant, rebuilt it as a fine dining establishment. Some of the characters have gone through their own journeys of self-actualization, and going into season 4, the pressure is really on. The restaurant is not making enough money to succeed. The working relationships are at a point where people need to grow or get off the pot. And we are still wondering if our lead Carmy is going to finally go and do something to deal with his emotional trauma. That's where we are now, y'all. Season 4, a bunch of Emmys and a bunch of Golden Globes later. Emmy, I want to start with you. 3 seasons in, 30 episodes in, are you over The Bear?
So I got over The Bear, to be honest, between season 2 and 3. I'm only just now picking up season 3 in order to prepare for season 4, because obviously I want to see how this whole thing ends. But season 2 lost me by the end for the simple reason that I got excited about this show day 1 because I was excited to watch a show about a beef stand. It obviously took a whole journey away from that. And as we kind of have talked amongst ourselves, I was excited to see a beef or a hot dog stand in Chicago get prestige treatment, as in stylized directing, high quality filming, great directing in every episode. And the actual beef stand was lost in the story. They're turning it into fine dining. They're leaning into exploring Chicago's fine dining scene. I thought that was really fun and cool and made people excited about the culinary scene in Chicago. But I was always wondering more about the more casual dining spots that I had initially gotten so excited to see get their due.
I really understand that reason. Like when the show came out, I think season 1 in particular, at least in the Chicago media, a lot of our colleagues really moved to be like, what is wrong about this show, right? What is wrong in this show as it relates to Chicago? And so people would go, oh, there is no beef restaurant or like hot dog stand where they do family meals, or that's not how we grade our restaurants in terms of, you know, can they stay open or not? Or, you know, no one has the Chicago accent. But one thing like you, I did appreciate coming out the gate was this idea that with so many workplace TV shows, whether it's set in a school or a bar in Philadelphia or, you know, set in like the billionaire class of this like media conglomerate family, this idea of like a workplace TV show, I'm always here for. And I hadn't really seen a setting where the workplace was, like you said, just like a basic restaurant in Chicago that people go in, maybe get a beef, get a hamburger, you know, talk shit real quick and then dip out. I don't think I had ever really seen that kind of show. So I was excited for that. And I can understand that as it moved to a more, you know, $100, $150, $200 a night type of venue, that's some of that romanticization was lost. Simone, over to you. Are you over the bear yet 3 seasons in?
Not at all. I'm really excited for season 4, actually. I also don't think season 3 was as boring or bad as some critics have claimed. It's so funny because I am not from Chicago, so I don't necessarily have the same depth of attachment to certain tropes, to certain stories, to certain elements that some native Chicagoans do, specifically an attachment to the concept of an Italian beef, the Italian beef stand, what it represents, particularly in a place like River North. I don't really come with that baggage. So to me, what makes the show great is you have these characters who are really compelling. They're flawed. Oh, boy, are they. But they are incredibly compelling. And then on top of that, you have, even though you don't get that, as Emmy points out, the sort of prestige treatment of the Italian beef, the Chicago hot dog, your stand, right? You do get to see this beautiful photography and cinematography as it relates to food writ large, right?
Yes.
And kind of what that means about what these different characters are trying to create through their food. And then on top of that, it's a show about family. It's a show about psychosis. It's a show about neurosis. It's about all these things that go so far beyond what it represents necessarily about Chicago. And that's why I like the show a lot.
Like when I watch shows like The Pit, I don't know anything about Pittsburgh. And so nothing like that they get wrong or right is actually happening to me. Same with like an Abbott Elementary or The Wire. I'd never lived in Baltimore, so I just had to assume. And so I try to give people who make shows about Chicago a little bit of credit that the things that I'm seeing or I'm catching on to, most people aren't, and they have to make the show for most people. Similar to you, Simone, I really enjoyed parts of season 3. I still left the season not enjoying the to be continued feeling of it because I do like some resolution if I'm going to have to sit for a year.
I used to have an editor who is like always write an ending. Like you should always have the ending written at least.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't just leave it for no reason.
But I appreciated what felt like a lot of risk taking with the visual storytelling of season 3. I do believe that 3 seasons in, if we were still in the beef restaurant, the food would not be as big of a star of the show. Because how many times can we watch someone trim a cut of beef? How many times can we watch somebody prepare jardinera, steam the rolls? I think what the fine dining aspect of this show gives us is this constant push for a new menu item, which, like you said, Simone, hits back at the neuroses at the center, this idea that no one's good enough. And I don't know, when you look at a classic Italian beef, it just, that makes sense. It's you if you know what it is, you know what it is. You're not expecting it to be more. It isn't expected to be pretty. It isn't expected to be together. And in some ways, I think that,
in fact, it's expected to fall apart.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that early beef represented where the restaurant was, where the people were. And I think fine dining, for all of the critiques that I don't think the show is even talking about in terms of what does that mean for accessibility, who your audience is, who is this restaurant for, I think what what that food is supposed to represent is this idea that it doesn't always make sense when you look at it. It's supposed to be more than the sum of its parts. It's supposed to be food as art. And that level of control that these characters want over the food in the restaurant is unrealistic. And that drives them all even more mad together, separately. And as I look towards season 4, one thing I noticed, if you're not there, but in Hulu, when you go through season 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you look at just the thumbnails, 1, 2, and 3, there are no thumbnails where it's food. It's all people. Maybe they're together. Maybe it's them by themselves. Season 4, every single thumbnail is food. It's a dish. And that's what makes me excited, because I actually think the story to this point has been pretty tight. Season 1, no one gets along. The restaurant is failing. Season 2, they all want to be optimistic to build a restaurant together, but they still aren't a team. Season 3, they're closer to a team, but this idea is the restaurant is too far. In season 4, between the trailer and these thumbnails, it looks like we're actually about to get a cohesive team, still working through some of their struggles. So I'm really excited to see maybe food come back to the forefront. Rick, you are somebody who has just been taking in this show through others' opinions, through this sort of annual summertime buzz we've been going through the last few years. Why haven't you made the choice to sit down and consume The Bear?
Well, I don't watch a lot of TV in the first place. Mm-hmm. So my issue with The Bear has nothing to do with the show itself, which by all accounts is a thoughtful and entertaining program. But what I don't like about The Bear is what it's done to Chicago, right? And we're not talking about lines at the door at Kasama or whatever. That might be annoying if you're just trying to get, breakfast. But at the end of the day, that's the cost of doing business. And I'm sure those restaurants are thrilled. I love the chocolate cake at Loaf Lounge as much as the next guy. What I don't like is how, for lack of a better word, provincial it makes the people in the city act. Chicago is the third largest city in the country. But whenever Hollywood deigns to include us in their next big movie or TV show, people in this town just go crazy in a way I find very unbecoming of a world-class city. Like the Jeremy Allen White lookalike contest, leave that corny shit in St. Louis where it belongs, okay? There used to be a time in the city when we had a media apparatus that was not only, not only independent, but genuinely competitive with that of New York and LA, rather than one that feels content begging for Dick Wolf's table scraps, while we all just watch the cool big name productions set up shop in Georgia or wherever the tax incentives are. We used to have Jet and Ebony Magazine, Playboy, even Bozo the Clown, and all these cultural exports that stood on their own and anchored Chicago in the media landscape.
This idea that what it does to Chicago, that always, at the same time you talk about us being the third biggest city, but then there's this idea of what it does to the city. It doesn't do that to all of Chicago, right? This idea of the Jeremy Allen White lookalike contest, that was always going to happen. Timothy Chalamet here and Dev Patel here, that was always going to happen. These are the things that come with being popular. And I don't think the fervor is necessarily this idea that the city's begging for attention or begging to be seen in the same light. Even describing it as this sort of Hollywood production, it feels like we're always going to be disadvantaged if the way we talk about film and TV as if it's an LA export to other places to begin with. And so I don't know, this idea of what it does to Chicago, I don't know. On the South Side, people just watching it and just kind of moving through it. It's and we're wishing that this same thing happened when South Side was out. And even though I don't watch The Chi, it's not getting the same type of attention. And so I think a part of this idea of what it does to Chicago, I think really needs to be focused in on what it does to white Chicago. Because if this is what was happening to South Side, we'd be going, but that's what I want. That's what we were asking people to do. And so I get it, because the way the media talked about season 1, let's point out everything that's wrong. We're Chicago and y'all didn't do us right.
When we did it too. Did it too. Let's be honest.
It was very annoying. I hate that was the talking point, and that's the way we were so guarded that we were like, you got to get us perfectly right, which is unrealistic. I've never looked at a New York City TV production and go, oh, I know more about New York City now.
This whole tension of Chicago being a world-class city, we deserve the same thing, the same amount of attention as everybody else. We shouldn't have to beg. We don't want to look desperate. We are exactly enough. And also we get to do the lookalike contest, and we get to get rowdy, and we get to talk about this, and we get to have, this is all reflected in the show The Bear. Like, this is all reflected in Carmy's desire to turn his brother's Italian beef establishment, the symbol of his family dysfunction, into a fine dining restaurant on par with not just the fine dining restaurants of Chicago, as evidenced through Sydney, one of the other characters, trip across Chicago through Richie, another character. He makes a trip and learns from I think it's Ever is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, not just fitting into Chicago's fine dining ecosystem that we know is so fantastic, but Carmy strives for recognition beyond that. Carmy is striving for perfection, for something that everybody is going to be talking about. And he knows how good it is. And he's going to work his little butt off.
He cut his teeth in New York City and Denmark.
And then came back. Right. And then came back. And like, it's so interesting that this tension of how we talk about the show and how Chicago feels about the show actually reflects the Chicagoiness of Carmy's journey in many ways in this restaurant.
I've never met anyone in Chicago as brooding as Carmy. And I think that maybe I'm on board with all of that. It's just a lot to watch. It's a lot of panic attacks.
I'm not sure we're meant to like Carmy. I don't think he's he's certainly not the most likable person on the show. Even Richie,
not the hero of this story.
Even Richie, who I think was one of the most unlikable people in season 1, I think has become one of the most lovable, and has had a more of an arc and more of a journey than even Carmy has.
I think that for me, there was a certain point between seasons 2 and 3 where the Emmys happened and it won Best Comedy, Best Actress, Best Actor, cementing its legacy as the absolute hottest show that was on, at least at that point. That was, over a year ago. And then for me personally, that coincided with feeling a little fatigued by the end of that season. There were definitely standout bottle episodes. The Christmas one with Jamie Lee Curtis, I think, was a lot of people's favorite. Fishes. And then Forks was ranked as one of the best episodes of TV that year by multiple different places. In Fishes, it's the family explosion. I was into the cameos too. And you get the raw nerve of all the, blood emotion behind the show. And then Forks is more how Jacoby was saying, this aspiration of what it could mean to become fine dining here. Like I said, though, by the end, I was a little fatigued. As I kind of have mentioned, my own relationship with the Bear PA blew up around that time, too. So then after that, I was like, I was very done.
Now it comes out.
You put the forks and the fishes away, I see. Okay.
January of that year, I'm like, okay, it's winter in Chicago. And all we're talking about is the Bear. And I'm over this guy and I'm over this show. I'm not doing it anymore. But also just want to say, as I have a lot of acquaintances and friends who've worked on the show. And when it comes to building something of a filming scene here, it's tough for people that study film or are passionate about it to live in Chicago. And we need those people here. People that love movies, that love comedy. And the Bear has been a godsend for a lot of them just in terms of employment. I'm always surprised when I have friends that can make a living and pay their rent by just being PAs strictly. And I think it's cool that the Bear has made that a hell of a lot easier over the last few years.
Anything that gets more people employed in the arts is a great thing.
Before we get to our season 4 predictions, we're always talking food in Chicago. We're talking about it because it's a show about Chicago restaurants, Chicago food. What does this show say about our food scene, do for our food scene? Is it completely separate from our real life lived food experience here in this city? What let's talk about the food of it all.
I don't know. So I can start there.
This is why I was surprised you didn't watch the show, because you love food and like specifically Chicago's restaurant scene, and you have a lot of opinions about it.
I just don't like being pandered to. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's what they're doing. I'm just saying that's I'm observing them doing.
No, they are. And I think, like Simone made a point earlier, it is, I think that's some of the self-consciousness of Chicago. Like, they came out with this first season and they was trying to make subtle and not like and very explicit references to Chicago to really endear themselves to us. They tried, G, and it wasn't through montages. It was through obscure baseball players and sort of Richie's sense that the neighborhood is changed. And we all go, River North, change. But what are you talking about? This ain't 1985 no more. Like, there were a lot of nods they tried to make to us to say, trust us, we love this city too. We're here trying to make this show for the city. And I'm gonna be real. People, the Chicago media ripped them. You got this wrong, you got this wrong, you got this wrong. And then in season 2, it felt like they came with their sort of tail in their hand a little bit and were like, okay, so we'll do less of these references and we'll do more of these montages. We'll try to get out in the city a little bit more. We'll show Sydney out here and we'll show Marcus moving around. We'll show Carmy moving around. And people kind of backed off, but then it was like, okay, how far did you really go, right? I look at the map of the restaurants they visited and, you know, they get about as south as Archer Heights to Berea Zaragoza. They get to Bridgeport, but a lot of their restaurants are concentrated around where the beef is located, around that sort of River North downtown. And so there are parts that I think it's still a show that, you know, lacks for getting out to the edges of the city. I do think, though, it gave a good nod that Chicago's food culture is a culture of working hard. The montage where they run around to like Johnny's and to the bakery, they tried to capture this sense of you know, before the sun is fully up, before the open sign goes up, that Chicagoans are awake doing the work.
That is my very favorite, actually, like visual. They do it a lot in the show, actually, where Carmy is up early or Sydney is up early or somebody's up early trying to catch the train and the sun is rising and you see the light and like they're not the only ones out, right? And everybody's like, it's one of my very favorite like images of Chicago, actually.
On the same idea, though, of filming early, I also appreciate filming in winter and setting things in Chicago in cold weather. Because even some of our most beloved Chicago movies are coincidentally summer movies too. There's pretty obvious reasons for that, but the blue hue of the bear is appreciated by, I think, anyone who is slogging through winter here.
It felt like after they got their awards, they leaned back off of this. We're trying to appease Chicagoans. It felt like the least sort of trying to be Chicago of the 3 seasons. And a part of me missed something in there because I did like when they were trying, when they were growing in that. And so, again, my hope is in season 4 that, you know, we get maybe to farther in the South or the West Side. It's just for some storytelling elements, you know, learn a little bit more about a couple of the ancillary characters. I really want to follow, you know, Ibrahim's character, the man who I think his name is Sweeps, who used to play baseball. The trailer shows that, you know, they might get into some of his baseball history. And so I'm hoping that we use these as ways to get out to other parts of the city. I do think the show has still tried to say at the heart of the city, these restaurants like a Johnny's, like the beef, that these restaurants are still at
well,
the
that
heart
it all exists together, that it's all the same city. It's all the same. When we say Chicago's dining scene, it includes all of those things.
For season 4, I guess I have a hot take, which is just I want Carmy and Sid to get together because there's
no.
I'm sorry. No, I don't care.
No.
There's no romance. There's no what really pissed me off was the inclusion of the girl in season 2 who's
Claire.
So perfect.
Molly Gordon's character.
So perfect. And also she saves lives. And also she's just hanging out and she's the girl next door. That really bothered me. And in general, the lack of romance on the show bothers me. I would be fine sacrificing a bit of the prestige in honor of a bit of the pulp. And I think that there just needs to be, if it's not between Carmy and Sid,
It can't be Team Carmy and Sid.
I can't do a relationship in the workplace. I
No.
don't think we should keep telling people to date their coworkers.
Oh, just make out in the walk-in then. That's what you want?
No,
don't
that's
have
where
to
Carmy
date.
breaks down. That's where Carmy breaks. No. Okay, here's what I think, though. Here's what I think. I do think if there's going to be romance, I do think it should be Sydney's romance and not Carmy's, is what I think it should be. Or even a Richie romance I could get behind.
I think Sydney and Marcus are going to connect over their moms
I
being
think so,
dead,
too,
and I
over
think
their
they've been
moms.
slow playing that.
Yes,
In a
I
way
think it's
that
been a good slow burn.
They've actually built a genuine friendship. Sydney and Carmy, they have a toxic working relationship that there's a friendship in there, but they both are jostling for control.
There's too much of a power struggle.
I'm not thinking about it that deep. You're getting deep. I just
Nah,
think
you
they need
want to see them
make
get
out. I
steamy.
wanna-
You want to see them
what?
get steamy.
That's another, actually, Emmy, I will agree with you.
I think if there was more making out in the show, I probably wouldn't have taken the break after season 2.
So my hot take prediction for season 4, which is also yours, Jacoby, is I think at the end they revert back to a beef stand.
Yep.
I think
That-
the restaurant fails and I think it reverts back. Now, whether that is played as a, family coming together like a nice moment or whether it's played as abject failure, I don't know yet.
Me neither.
It's going to turn into a small cheval, I would assume.
I think they will likely draw this out for a couple more seasons, and I think it ends up back at a beef stand. And I think some people go on to acclaim. I think Sydney moves on eventually. She's bigger than that. Richie, I think he thought his life was just the beef. I think he realizes there might be more to this for you in this world of this culinary world. Go do other things. And I think Carmy realizes that what he's pursuing in fine dining isn't going to save him, isn't going to fix him, and he actually needs to go back to his roots.
I'm with Rick. I think it's going to become a small cheval.
Honestly, that would go back to being
That would be
the most
Chicago
thing.
accurate. Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
Yep.
Rick, at the end of this, you are our resident bear skeptic. And I almost don't want to ask this on mic, but I will. You gonna maybe pick it back up? Try it again? What do you think?
Well, no.
The voice cracking that well.
I will turn on the finale when they go to a Cubs game.
I think the Bear will go to a Sox game, actually.
I think so too. I also think, Rick, again, I don't know you that well, but I think I can peg it. I think this show is actually very up your alley. Like,
I'm sure
really
it's a
is.
great, like I said, I'm sure it's a fine, upstanding piece of televised media.
I hope the Bear gets to season 5 because I am 0 for 4 on Bear auditions. I've auditions for every goddamn season, have made it to the finals, been on standby, ready to go shoot, and got released. And so I need it to keep going on so I can get my much deserved TV cameo.
That would get me to watch everything, every season, every episode.
If they want to feature a local daily news podcast that people love to listen
Pander
to,
away.
maybe they're listening. Hey, man, we're here for it.
I want to give a huge thank you to the entire CityCast Chicago team, social media manager Rick Homuth,
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hey Chicago newsletter editor Emmy Mack,
Thank you.
executive producer Simone Alisea.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
Of course, I am here every single day. I appreciate y'all listening. As we said at the top, season 4 of The Bear premieres today on Hulu. All 10 episodes are available. I'm gonna watch it, and then I'm gonna give y'all next week my season 4 recap, my thoughts to kind of keep this train going.
And I'll be writing a kind of review recap piece coming up, so stay tuned.
So make sure you are bookmarking our website, chicago.citycast.fm. Some good news. The hit sketch show The Spades Table is back tomorrow night at IO Theater. I'm going to drop a link in the show notes for you. As always, we appreciate you for listening and reading. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace.